Hi, and welcome to Speakers on Edge. We're doing the spotlight sessions, and we've got one of our favorite guests back. He's been up to something. Tom, welcome back. What have you been up to?
Hello, Jace. It's so good to be with you again. I've been looking forward to this. There's been so much going on in my life. My first book that you can see right here behind me, other side, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels. I'm so proud to say has won 6 book awards. I was just in Phoenix to pick up one from the International Impact Book Awards, which was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's just so humbling to have people read that book and get so much from it. And then my new book, My Life that followed my life, is Morning Ground. It started in a great way. I was sitting in my desk one day holding my coffee cup, much like I'm doing today with you, Jace. And I was thinking about, before I launched that first book, I've had a morning practice for about 35 years and how I'd strayed a bit from it, and thought to myself, Tom, you could use a little grounding. And I looked at the coffee mug, and Morning Ground was born. So I started on Instagram and Facebook every morning, less than 2 minutes, with these words: before the day asks anything of you, take this moment for yourself. And each word has a day that I speak to for less than 2 minutes. Well, that and other writings that I've done and was doing turned into Morning Ground. And it's a daily empowerment book. It's really great. It has a theme about coffee, obviously. So if you're not a coffee drinker, you'll still be welcome to join it. And I love what's happened with that book already. It's been taking off like crazy. In fact, I was speaking with some prospective clients in Zimbabwe 2 days ago. And as I joined the Zoom call, one of them said to me, "It's so good to meet you. I spend every morning with you on Morning Ground." Boy, was that an affirmation. And then yesterday, I gave my very first talk about Morning Ground, sharing it from the stage and speaking not only to how I came up with it, but reading excerpts and sharing what it meant to me personally. It was great. I enjoyed it so much, and I could see that my audience also got a lot from it.
This is exciting because I'm giggling here because every day I start my day with a coffee and I sit and I am in the moment and I'm drinking my coffee, and then my darling cat, she will come up and she knows the routine. She walks up, meow, says hello, wants to be cuddled while I'm having my morning coffee. So in one hand I've got my cat, on the other hand I've got my coffee. I don't like starting my day without that. It's a beautiful routine. Yeah, it's a beautiful routine, and it's really funny to have such a cute routine. But it makes a difference. I know on the days where you get up, oh, I've got an early meeting and I'm rushing and I've got this happening and I've got that Morning Ground actually makes a difference. What happened to you when you returned to doing the Morning Ground? Did you notice a difference in you?
Oh, I did. In fact, it's been really funny because it's really designed. You can pick it up at any time of day. You can have it bedside, coffee table, or in morning. And you get to chapters or things like the buzz of gratitude and the grind of the morning sunshine, things like that, which are great to see. But I know what I found for me is I started, after recording it, listening to it, and it's become something that led me back into parts of my morning practice that I was wavering on. Because it's so important for us to take those moments whenever we need them during the day. I know, Jace, you and I both are walkers. And for me, going in nature, no music, no sound, just what's available to me, is so important to, I'm a big introvert, and it's the way I recharge to be able to come back and be out and out with people and talk with people is to take that time. So I think Morning Ground actually has become useful for me, and I look forward to recording them every day. For this talk yesterday, I played to open the session. I played the very first one that I recorded, which was called Opening. That was the word of the day. And yesterday I created one especially for this group to close out the session. And I love how people are touched by it. In fact, people came up afterwards when they were looking at the book and were so excited to make it part of their day. And Jayc, you're going to hear it first. I haven't told anyone else. There's a volume 2 coming.
Fantastic. I'm a big believer when you do a book, you do a series. And I actually learned that off Jerry Roberts, I think was the guy whose book course I did about, I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that. It was How to Write a Book in 40 Hours. And he was, if you're going to write one book, make it a series, because then people will, when they've got that one book, you've got their trust, you've got their they feel like they know you. And so having a second book, you're giving them more access to you, more of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. So I
Yeah.
think
I love what you're saying, Jayc.
Oh, thank you. Thought you might. It's the fun thing is, when we write one book, we actually have more content. Did you find that with this book, with Morning
Well,
Ground?
it was really, really, really great with both of these books. And I have to tell you, what you said about series is exactly what's happening to me. But the first book, when I started out, I remember the manuscript was about 700 pages. And so we started cutting, and then it got down to the end, and they wanted to cut some more. And I felt like I was looking at snips of film on the ground, and I looked at them and said, well, wouldn't this make another book? And then when I finished Morning Ground, I was like, wow, there's so many more of these that I've done, and so much more of my writing that we could use. And my team is so funny. I look at them every week in our meeting, and I can intuit their thinking, can we put this man in a cage so we can catch up with him? So I measure how fast I tell them what I'm up to. But my life in business suits, hospital gowns, and high heels was the first of 3. Later this year, early in January, my life at Facebook, The Adult in the Room, will launch. I was a very early employee at Facebook, and the first 75 employees, and literally was old enough to be everyone there's father. They were all 2021, deferring business school, law school, medical school to work at their dream job because Facebook was still in colleges. And here I come along at 50, old enough to be their father. They actually called me the adult in the room, so I'm going to tell the early day stories of what went on at Facebook through my eyes, being the oldest person there. And then next year, my life in toxic soup will weave together a toxic relationship with toxic cancer treatments. And boy, what people are going to see at the end of it, they're going to be surprised about when I share which one was easier. So that's happening. And then Morning Ground, of course, is now already slated to have a volume 2.
So we have movies coming out as well.
I'd love that,
Do we?
Jayc.
I
I hope you're
I
planning that.
I would love to see that as a movie, because your life at Facebook. We already have had the Facebook movies. I think was there 2 that have come out? One, I know there's
Yes,
at least one.
the 2 that we know of anyway, right?
Yeah. To me, this is a perfect opportunity for us to have a movie series come out. Look out the Fast and Furious range of movies and the Harry Potter range of movies. We've got Tom's range of movies, my life movies.
Yeah, it's been quite a
Yeah.
life, I must admit. I have a Thoreau poem on my refrigerator for the last 50 years, which I won't quote for everybody right now, but I will share one line for it that's about how I live my life. And it's about sucking the marrow out of life. And I decided a long ago at a young age that I understand, especially after being given 6 months to live 3 times, that the life in this physical container is finite. Whatever the great mystery is, whatever our beliefs are and our faith is in, the time we spend in this body is finite. And I plan when I take that last breath to not be one of those people that go, I wish I had done this. Why didn't I do that? Or have any regrets. I want to know that my life was as full and rich as it could have been, that includes also in the work that I do and how I give back to others.
That's beautiful. And have you seen recently that in, I think it's Japan, they found ways to extend our life? Is it Yamamoto, something like that? I don't mean to be disrespectful to the man's name. Um, he's found that the cells can be reminded of their behavior when they were younger, and they regenerate at the younger rate, which extends the life of the cell. It's
Yes.
absolutely
Well, we'll save it for
fascinating.
another. Yeah, we'll save it
It's
for another podcast, but I've been working on something the last 5 years that's not quite that extreme, but certainly has influenced how healthy I am, looking at something called health span instead of lifespan, not just looking at how long we live, but what the quality of our life is during that. You know, Jace, you make me want to laugh because I have a number of people from with AI, which AI is here, where it's not going away, and I actually love what some of the things it's going to bring to us, as well as some challenges we'll have. But people are sharing with me, we can make an AI clone of you. We can have another
Oh
Tom that can
yeah.
do a lot of the work you do and answer a lot of the questions. And I'm like, look, there are people in this world that think one Tom is enough. One Tom LeNoble is sufficient, and two of them wandering around is a little scary.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, it is. It's true. We can clone people now, and the amount of cloning that's going on, and the face swapping and the body swapping, it's quite crazy what's actually happening from the scam perspective and the ethics and all that sort of thing. Now, you've you've with this journey into morning ground, when you were last on the show, we had your not your standard website, which was yourname.com. You've got something else now. Tell
I
us what
do.
happened. So where did that come from, and why? Because
Yeah, so I was looking at opening pathways one day because my podcast is called Opening Pathways. My I self-publish, my self-publishing company is Opening Pathways, and Opening Pathways just started being who I was. And then I had people asking me, what all are you involved in? So Opening Pathways, I trademarked it. And then it became Opening Pathways Collective, which, if you go to that website, openingpathwayscollective.com, you get to experience the whole entire ecosystem of Tom LeNoble. Most people don't understand or know that I'm not only in the nonprofit world, I have a nonprofit, I do philanthropy work, I also have another business, I also do things with speaking. I'm an author, I'm also the CEO of a coaching academy, the Academy for Coaching Excellence, and so much more. And where I've been in the media, where I've given talks with my speaking. All of this and more you can find at openingpathwayscollective.com. So we launched it earlier in the year. rebranded the business a bit, and it's been really, really exciting and rewarding for me for people to actually get a view into all the things about Tom LeNoble versus the pieces of me.
And what would be the most important place for them to start with that website?
You know, right on that homepage, I recently launched a documentary about myself that was done where Damon John from Shark Tank introduces me, and it's a great way to learn all about what happened in my life in about 20 minutes. You know, it all started in a shack. I actually grew up in what we fondly called the shack. You can learn more about that in this book behind me. We had no hot water and no refrigerator, and ended up not only in a Fortune 500 boardrooms, many hospital gowns, you know, that flimsy piece of fabric that never ties well in the back, all the way to the reinvention of what I've done in my life. And this documentary that Damon John introduces me shares that path, that journey that I've been on. So that's one of the things to see. And then you'll find other interesting tabs there where you can see everything from podcasts I've been on, where I've been in the news, some of the recognition I've received for my work, the types of speaking that I do. I give talks on everything from risk, resilience, and reinvention to the philanthropic mindset to living fully while dying. It's I love sharing what I've learned with others and inspiring them. So the philanthropic mindset started because someone came to me and said, Tom, when I have money, I want to be a philanthropist. And it got me thinking, and I said, wait a minute, I'm going to turn this upside down. So through my work in the philanthropic mindset, it helps people see that your smile, a hello, sitting with someone in need, is a philanthropic gesture. You don't need your name on a building, go to a gala, or write a huge check to have the philanthropic mindset. Living fully while dying was really about my experience of seeing in phase one, I was living fully without even any regard to dying, and phase two was living fully while being told I was dying. Then phase three came along, and I realized I was living fully and I had been dying all along. Sounds a little heavy, but it's actually a very empowering talk, helping us get in touch with exactly what are we doing with this finite life. What's the call you need to make? What's the risk you haven't taken? What are some of those goals and dreams that you haven't pursued?
Is there a goal and dream you haven't pursued yet?
You know, they come every day, Jace. I think that my challenge sometimes is how I fit it all in, and I have unbounded energy, and fortunately, the creativity that comes to me, and I allow it in, and I trust that it's going to turn in something productive, and what isn't will fall away. I love this idea of a movie. I know I'm working on something with my life in business suits, hospital gowns, and high heels right now with a one person production. All three of those characters you see on the book are me, and a one person production that kind of shares this message that the book is delivering of inspiration and that anything is possible even in the most difficult challenges that life presents to us. So that's something on the horizon. And you know, there's just more to do. I'm looking at how I expand speaking to larger audiences and how I do more work even in strategic roles. I already work with a number of nonprofits and for-profit businesses in their strategy work and how they work at looking at either growth that they're going to have or transforming a business, sometimes even trying to save a business, of how I use my business years and all the things I'm doing now and put those and wrap those in a package to deliver them because they're so linked.
I'm sitting here listening and my brain is just going, this man can teach so many people so much about life, about
Thank you.
passion, about purpose, about business in and doing it and philanthropy, because you said, and let me just see if I've got the phrase correctly. I mean, you were talking about living, but you're actually dying. And then you also said, now the line I wanted was, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can't get it, and I didn't write it down because I was so into it. But it was about you. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with you right this minute. And the reason I'm overwhelmed is because I can see the world needs you more.
Oh, thank you, Jayc.
And your speaking is, I'm seeing you having your own events out on the getting, and I'm not talking filling up Madison Square Garden with 40,000 people type events. I'm talking about filling up a boardroom with a select group of people in different states. And you not only sharing your journey with them, but they're sitting there because they've got that philanthropy. They want that. That's right. That's what I was going to say. They said, when I have money, I will be philanthropic. No, you will be philanthropic and have money. It's the switch. And it's teaching that. That to me is that's what's overwhelming me at the moment, because it's a mindset thing that so many people need to hear from you, because you're the perfect example. You have such an amazing, varied life experience, wisdom. I mean, are you familiar with Bob Proctor?
Yes,
and his teachings?
yes.
Okay. I would put you at a similar level of expertise,
Thank you.
wisdom, passion, ability to communicate and inspire people. That to me is the next phase of your life. Is the more we have you in front of the audience, the better the world is.
Ah, Jace, thank you. There's two things I find that come to mind about what you're saying. One of them is, I speak with a lot of nonprofits in my work, and they often are speaking about donors, and they look at that $1,000 check as being more valuable than a donation of, say, 4 quarters. Well, you might think you can do more with $1,000 than 4 quarters. But there's something about this that's really important to remember. Whether it's $1,000 check or 4 quarters, it comes from the same intent. It comes from someone's wealth. It's something they're expressing that they're willing to give. So while you think you can do more with $1,000 check, never forget that a lot of quarters add up fast. So that's one thing that comes to mind when you say that. The other thing that I love, this idea of me sharing with people, which I try and do often. I know with my private clients, I see it so often of people living in the past or they're living in the future. They live in the past as if there's going to be a do-over, as if life is like that video we're watching on the phone where we have a go back 10-second button. Life is not like that. So spending time in the past, you're missing what's happening right here in the present where the magic is. As I like to say, when you're not in the present, you might just miss that butterfly that just flew by, and you can substitute whatever it is you might think of for the butterfly. And then people get too far in the future. There's things we need to be attentive to. We need food in the house, power in the car, or the kids are cared for, whatever it may be in our lives. But getting too far in the future, I think people sometimes forget we got up this morning. some people did not.
That's a hard reminder for a lot of people. And it comes back to the gratitude. And I know that I was, as I said to you beforehand, that I was stalking your profile before our call to make sure we had all the things set up. And on the Academy for Coaching Excellence, I saw there's a 30-day gratitude journal. I just want to plug that because gratitude has been a key factor in my own life. And I practice gratitude. I do a 5-minute gratitude smile meditation in the mirror every night. And it's basically I stand there in front of the mirror and I start smiling and I breathe and I look at me. Try looking at yourself in the mirror for 5 minutes.
Yes. Take it to the next level, and I challenge the viewers for the next 30 days, whatever time of day you choose, to look in the mirror, look in your own eyes, and say these words: I love you. 30 days, I promise you a miracle.
I will agree with you 100% because I've done that with clients myself and with my own self. It's when you love yourself, and when you say it, it's really fun because you go, I love you. And then usually maybe a weekend, maybe sooner, I love you. And the tears come. And the sobbing and the emotional release and the we'll call it the ugly emotions, which are actually the most cleansing.
Yeah, I think that people think that gratitude, so often we read books about things and we think we need to emulate what someone else is doing. And your gratitude practice is something to design and create for yourself, something that feels good for you. I know for me, in the morning, the first thing I do when I wake up and my feet hit the ground is I express gratitude that I'm here another day. As I said earlier, some people are not. And then before I go to sleep at night, I have a gratitude practice I do. It involves a few components of not only what's gone on during the day, but asking for gratitude of keeping safe and protected and inspired and hopeful. And a little woo-woo, but I even check in with a few people that have transitioned from this physical realm, because another podcast for sure, but I think that these people's memories and still live on with us, and the energy of them still exists, that we can still communicate. It's just in a different way. But like I said, that's a different podcast.
Oh yes, I'm a firm believer that everyone that we have who has come and gone, they're in here, they're in our hearts. And when we communicate with them, do they hear us or not? It doesn't matter. What matters is what we're communicating, how it affects us, and be in the moment for that communication. We can get greater insights and miracles of understanding, huge miracles of understanding. And depending on our belief systems, as you said, that's a whole other time. So you created opening pathways, and you're having all these doors open. We have a beautiful trademark. We have these beautiful documentary about you. For someone going to the website, they need to look at that documentary. Definitely. You've got all your podcasts that you've been on. So there's a lot of entertainment there. Binge watching. That's what we do. We binge watch. Studies have actually shown everyone binge watches now. That's the way TV is. It's binge watch time. What binging shall we do with your website besides the podcast and the documentary? What else is there for us?
Yeah, it's not just the podcasts I've been on that I would share with you. It's the Opening Pathways podcast. I've done well over 150 episodes with leaders in the profit and the nonprofit world, as well as just some people I find interesting. And it's not your typical podcast. We do the typical of who are you, what do you do, and end with how we find you. But we get to talk about topics like leadership, values, risk, renewal, hope, trust. And it's really, really interesting to hear how people's lives and where they ended up and what they're doing have been influenced by these things and what they have to say. So I encourage, especially if you're someone new on the journey or looking to start something new or starting new in leadership or just in something in life in general, those podcasts can be really interesting. The other thing that I want you to watch out for is, I say this frequently, and I've decided it's time to create a talk and a workshop around it, that I hear people talk about fear. I hear people talk about the imposter syndrome, which is, Lord knows we have so many books about and so many theories and workshops and what it means. What I have learned is things like fear and even the dreaded imposter syndrome are simply opportunities for growth. And faced with fear, faced with this idea of we're someone or in some place that we shouldn't be, aren't worthy enough, aren't measuring up, we're simply being asked to perhaps stretch and grow a bit from where we currently are. One of the tips I want to give you in doing this that I find so often with people is we forget what I call our evidence. What is that? Well, if you look at your life, you've already been able to accomplish many things, survive many things, and when we're faced with a new challenge, we sometimes forget the evidence of what we've been able to do before. So when that happens, know that you are in a period of growth. It's an opportunity. Remember your evidence. Remember that you're still here. One thing we don't get to do is have a crystal ball and know how things turn out. What I do know is when you approach it from what I just said, from a space like that, opportunities are yours to take. So remember your evidence. Remember when you feel those things, you're just experiencing a new opportunity for growth.
Devil's advocate here. What if my evidence says I failed?
Then that's the time you reach out for what I like to call the energy of support. There are 6 forms of energy in life: time, physical vitality, relationship. There are others. One of them is the energy of support. And sometimes we need support from a coach. Sometimes it's somebody, a therapist. Sometimes it's something else. One thing I share with people is our friends and our family love us. Sometimes without realizing they're doing it, they tell us what we want to hear or what they think is best for us. So maybe broaden who you're speaking with and seeking out. But remember, when those habits happen and you're feeling that way, it's often a time just to reach out and use that energy of support. Think of this. How many times have you witnessed somebody you know or somebody you don't know that's going through something, and the answer, what is happening to them and what they're seeking, is really obvious to you? You actually think to yourself, why can't you see it? Well, they don't. That happens to each of us too. And in those times, sometimes we just need someone who holds the space to help us see those things. I have something in my coaching practice called the haystack method. You know that old saying, it's like finding a needle in the haystack? Well, I think your answers are that needle. I don't know your answers, you do. My job is to hold the space to help you clear away the hay so you can find that needle, your answer.
But that means I've got to do the work at shoveling the hay.
Well, sometimes that work that we think takes so much shoveling and that face you're making, Jace, is actually quite easy. What we might get in touch with in our lives is that some of these things that we create to be so difficult, so big, don't have to be. It's just how we're looking at them, the lens we're using of why they seem so difficult.
I said to you a little bit earlier in our interview today I was overwhelmed with all the stuff that was going on. How do we overcome that? Because you said it's about changing the lens, about the way we look at things. So if somebody's watching this and they're going, wow, he's speaking right to me here, and they're in that place of overwhelm, what wisdom do you have for us?
This is a great question, Jason. I'm so glad you asked it. I'm going to give you two ideas of how you get out of your head and where it feels like sometimes it's spinning around and there's no order to it. Take those thoughts and put them on a piece of paper. Don't write them out, just write the thought without regard to order, without regard to whether they make sense. At another time, go back to that piece of paper and look at it, and from your mind to the paper in a different format, a different space, put some order to it. Maybe write about them a little bit and prioritize them a bit. About often those things that are spinning around in our head is because things have what feels like multiple priorities when they just need to be put in an order of how they need to occur. The other tip I'll get to you is often we forget that when things are spinning around in our head, when we speak them out loud, it creates something that isn't existing while they're spinning. As we say the words, we hear the words, we're thinking the words. What you've done is closed a loop. There's really, really many studies about this. It has many big names. I'm just going to keep it simple for you today. You're thinking, speak it out, hear it. You'll find an interesting thing that happens. Even record yourself as you're speaking it so you hear yourself speaking back to yourself from that recorded session. These two tips will help organize your thoughts, help add some priority to it, and decrease some of the stress you're feeling and anxiety about it. And hey, sometimes these things seem like they're silly, but hey, sometimes they just make things a little easier and, if nothing else, a bit more enjoyable.
These are really important tips because personally, when I'm dealing with anything in my own life, I write it out, and it doesn't have to be in order, and I scribble it down. And then, I'll also do the prioritizing and maybe a little bit more detail. I've got book after book after book. I've got so many notebooks, it's hilarious. But what also I found was when I'm having a conversation with some of my close friends, I've got a couple of close friends I can be very vulnerable with. And what's funny is I will be very vulnerable and their reaction is, I want to fix you, here's what you do. And I'm going, no. I don't need you to to fix me. I need you to listen, because when I'm saying this, I'm hearing it and I'm understanding what I need to change and how I need to change or grow, or what decision or mindset or action or whatever it is, the missing piece of that jigsaw. All I need is to go blah and just that verbal diarrhea, for want of a better description. It's a big solution. And I've heard now there's some platforms on the internet where people are paying other people just to listen, not as therapists, just as listeners.
Yeah, you know, we have this thing, I love to talk about it, that of how we listen. I call it the art of listening. I need to come up with something better than that, but that's what it is. When we're listening to people, so often we are listening at the same time we in our mind are thinking of our response. There's a few things happening. One, you're not paying attention to what someone's saying because you're in your own head. And by the way, they know it. The other thing that's happening as you're doing that is you're sending a message to yourself that you don't trust yourself to be able to respond. I promise you, you will respond more appropriately with a much, much clearer response and meaningful response by allowing yourself to fully listen and trust that your response doesn't need to be rehearsed or planned out. Those are just two tips for you about that. The other thing that Jayc just spoke of reminded me of something that happens to me now frequently, where people say, Tom, how do you get all this writing done? One of the tips I give for authors, and I suggest everybody consider, it's a cathartic experience to write about your life experience. I guarantee you've forgotten more than you can imagine. But so many people sit down and try and do it in a linear fashion. I need to go from day to day, week to week, year to year. What I learned in the process is just to capture it, whether it's a note, a little recording, whatever it is, without regard to timing, what order it's in, anything more than that, because that thoughts, those things don't come typically in an order. They come sporadically, they pop in our minds. Worry about the order later. Get all the ideas, all the thoughts, all the memories, all the things that you may want to share with others. Capture them all. Think about the order and which ones mean something or maybe get cut, or even more importantly, which ones are part of the same thought. Because this idea of trying to order things, for many of us, isn't how our mind flows. It's not how we think.
But I want control.
What an illusion that is, Jace. What an illusion that is, right?
I don't trust and I want control.
Yeah, go out in nature. Go out in nature, because nature, which is far more part of our lives than I think most of us think. If you want to learn something, check out the mycelium network. You'll be fascinated. But if you think about nature, the sun doesn't have to trust that it will set. The flower that is underground in the winter doesn't have to trust and think about and have control over it whether it will bloom. The bird doesn't have control or need to be concerned with if it will fly. They just trust. They give up that control. And the keenest way to do it is staying right here in the present, not in the past, not too far in the future, but right here. And trust and give up control about outcomes and what's going to happen and your need to be in charge of it. I promise you, if you look back and you think about it, you never were. There's so many things in life that we that turn out completely different. You know, we humans, when there's something unknown, it's like a big black hole that we have to reach up here and put something in it. They rarely turn out that way. And once again, I'll share, if nothing else, living that way, it's a lot more fun and enjoyable.
Tom, as always, you have given us incredible content, incredible advice, incredible wisdom. You have been absolutely amazing. Please remind us how people can find you and the books. Please remind us.
Yes, thank you so much. My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels, Morning Ground. I have a collaboration coming out with some other authors in a book called Unsilenced Voices. That's a woman put together. It's her fifth volume. She was a domestic violence survivor and has a nonprofit. And so I wanted to be part of that. And my chapter is Living Fully While Dying. You can find me at tomlenoble.com, at openingpathwayscollective.com. And while my team gets crazy when I do this, you can also find me at resilience at tomlenoble.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Tom, thank you once again. It has been an absolute honor having you on the show today. That's it, folks. We'll see you next time on Speakers on Edge.